Hello, everyone, and thank you for your interest in the anonymized PII Vault plugin for Domo Workbench. In this video, we're going to talk about anonymous data matching. Anonymous data matching is when you have taken multiple sets of data, run it through the PII Vault, and loaded anonymous data into Domo. Now, if the same people are being anonymized with the same key using the same anonymized PII Vault credentials, the same account number, they will always get the same polyanonymous ID. So you don't need to do anonymous data matching. You already have an anonymous identifier in Domo. However, if you're using different account IDs to load data into Domo, for instance, one company may be given one set of credentials and another company another set of credentials, they can anonymize the same people or any people that they have, load them into Domo, and in Domo, we can still link those individuals together. That's done with anonymous data matching. So let's take a look at how that works. For instance, let's say we've got a group of fully identified people. We got two groups of them, actually. What happens is it goes through Domo, the PII is sent into the PII Vault, and it returns back this polyanonymous ID, which turns the data from identified to anonymous. That data then goes into Domo. So you know in Domo, you've got these two different data sets, and all this data is anonymous. It's great, but you can't link it together yet. Because even though you know that you've got an overlap, you don't know who those individuals are because the polyanonymous IDs for the same people in each group is going to be different. So what you do is you get the data from the PII Vault that allows you to identify the anonymous common members. And that's what we call our linking table. Let me show you how that works. So in Workbench, you create a job, and we're going to call this job matching. The transport type is the PII Vault provider. So the PII Vault is going to bring the data in. We're also going to be the data reader, PII Vault reader. When you have to do this data set type, just come all the way down to Workbench CSV, and that's what you need to create the job. So here we are, we've got the job. All of the credentials and all of the parameters are set up in the source provider. First thing we do is we open that up, and we have to provide the Vault credentials. We're going to use this button and bring up the window that you should have seen in the other videos if you've watched how to load the data. So we're going to copy in from the email we received from the PII Vault the account credentials. Now, it's important to realize that for this to work, you have to have at least two different sets of credentials, maybe even three. So if you have two sets of credentials, then each one of those account IDs could have loaded data into the Vault. Either one of them can pull back the match table, but if you have a third account that doesn't have any access to load data into PII Vault, but is able to pull the match table, that gives you a great separation of responsibilities. So once we've got those credentials, we test, we've connected, we verified, we have the Vault account, and so we say, okay. The next part gets a little bit complicated. What we need to do is determine what values we're going to use to link the different profiles from the different sources. This is always a tricky situation, so a lot of thought has to be put into place beforehand. What you have here is a window that lets you configure as many different criteria as you want. We give you one to start with, and the confidence level is based upon the criteria you're going to add. How confident are you that the results, the links that are put together from here are going to be the same person? You can have as many tests as you want and set the confidence level to each. Additionally, every time you have a match for any of the criteria, then they're going to show up in the results set. So you can stack different criteria together and say, if you have this one and that one and that one, it means a greater case. So here's an example of what it looks like. There is a right-hand side and a left-hand side. And you want to put the criteria together and says, okay, for the first account on the left-hand side, we want to see if the first name equals the first name from the right-hand side. we're going to do the same for the last name. For right now, we're just going to go ahead and this is what we're going to use for our test, our example. So now that I've got those in here, it's a really simple test. Do they have the same name? I can put any criteria together in any combination I want based upon any of these values here. For instance, if I wanted to load and define a different setting, for instance, if the email address is the same, and I can just double click on here and say email address. Now, fortunately, what I did is I forgot the left-handed side equals the right-handed side. And I needed the and here. So now we're saying if the first name is first name and the last name is last name and the email is equal to the email, then it's a condition. The thing you want to try out and make sure before you run this and before you save it is to validate the test. And if you click on validate test, if it doesn't tell you you have a problem, it worked. It was all good. So let's go ahead and save this, apply the changes, save it here, and now we can run the job and see which profiles from the data that I've already loaded are the same. And here they are. Each one has a unique ID for the combination, but more importantly, you've got the different polyanonymous IDs from the different data sets, and we even tell you which condition and what confidence level. So you can load data from as many different sources as you want. Each one of them can anonymize the data before it goes into Domo, and you can still link that data at the individual level. Well, there you go. I hope you found this as interesting as we did putting it all together, and enjoy using the PII Vault for Domo plugin.